Well, collation drama is how our correspondent says it was captured in Rivers. But drama, some people will say, is a mild term when you look at what transpired on television. I mean, from the visuals that we saw there. Let us, ask our guests in the studio. Maybe they also see it as drama. Mr. Agbese, you were talking about, what transpired. Give us your own reading. We've seen the visuals there. What transpired? What did you see? What did you think the military was trying to achieve with the fracas they were having with the police?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, the drama was uncalled for. Nevertheless, we had that drama because of the suspicion and the heat that was generated prior to that election, the governorship election in Rivers State. It was in Rivers State that the various political parties expressed a vote of no confidence on officials of INEC. I listened to the INEC official here who said that the office was under siege and that collation, people who were moving into the collation centers were being searched and all of that. We may also recall that they had alleged before this time that people were not going to use the card reader machine in some instances in Rivers State. And that was exactly what the civil society leader who addressed that press conference was talking about. I also read on the pages of newspaper
civil
that people, yes, one of the persons who addressed the press conference, the election observer, I saw on the screen, who mentioned card reader, the use of card reader machine.
The person whom I heard was the Commissioner for Information in Rivers State.
Okay. Yes,
that was the person who spoke.
Okay, exactly. That person, he mentioned the non-use of card reader machine. It was an issue all over the country during the governorship election. Even in Benue, people are still contending the fact that INEC has refused to obey its own guidelines. The INEC before this time had clearly told us that the no use of card reader machine will result to cancellation of results. INEC didn't keep to that. It still
did not justify
so now,
what we saw on television. I mean, not use doesn't now mean that we will see police, and military fighting to the extent that tear gas being fired.
How
has that got to do anything? I mean, what has that got to do with
yes, in Rivers, various parties had alleged that, some privileged persons who were going to smuggle materials into the collation center. I don't know exactly what transpired between the military and the police to have that altercation. But in Rivers, as the situation were, before the results were cancelled.
Let me ask you pointedly, do you think that the role of the military in that situation at a collation center, was it justified?
The presence of the military in a locality where they have raised allegations that
not
people...
in a locality. I don't want you to mix it up. In a collation, I'm being very specific. The elections, in fact, it would have been lovely if we could get, if our producers can get the conduct of the elections, because I recall that both the PDP yes, the PDP candidates in the elections was covered. The Minister of Transport, who is a member of the APC, who had no candidate, I mean, APC had no candidate in the Rivers election.
But that doesn't take the fact that he's a Rivers person and he has the right to vote and protect his vote.
They both were interviewed, and they both commended the security agencies so far. They said the elections, so far so good, were being conducted peacefully. I do recall that I think the governor said he was a little apprehensive that he's looking very peaceful now, but he hopes that the collation process as well will equally be peaceful. And that is where the abracadabra happens. So I also remember that the Minister of Transport said, oh, things are going peacefully. That's because of the huge deployment of security agencies. So everybody is voting and they are at peace. And people were thinking, if the voting process is peaceful, then it means that there should be no drama again. Collation was the place where the least expected any violence. So can we really say that we can justify, or the military can justify, its presence at the collation center?
Yes. Before this time, we had that, like Governor Wike mentioned, according to what you said here, he said he hopes that the collation will also be peaceful. The statement was in anticipation. And as a matter of fact, when a governor begins to anticipate violence at the level of collation center, it means something is wrong. And I think to that extent, we would agree that the presence of the military at the collation center was to ensure that there was peace and orderliness. Would you say that there was some
anticipation of violence and as such you can justify the presence and the role of the military at the collation center?
I'm really surprised at what he's saying. I was an election observer in 2015. I have been an election observer for the past few years. And we know that issues of disruptions and some kind of intervention always take place at the coalition center. It is elementary for those who are conversant with our electoral processes. I was in Ekiti, I was in Osun, and so we know that in coalition centers, even sometimes election observers are not allowed access to the coalition centers. And so if anybody says that, oh, we just pray that at the coalition center it is just stating the obvious. And so the point you have been restating is the fact that no matter what the reasons could have been, is there any valid reason why the military, as shown by your video clips, will be at the coalition center? The coalition center is not a garrison. It's not an headquarters of a brigade, of any brigade, to the best of my knowledge. It is where persons, party agents, INEC officers come in to just compute the results coming from the various polling units. So if there is no problem at the polling unit, we don't expect any crisis to be at the coalition center. However, even if there was, have the police said that they were incapable of handling those issues in the coalition center? Few days before that election, I was in a particular TV station, and I said that the military have shown, especially in Rivers State, that they were not just going to be providing security, but that they will be participating in the process. And how? I stated there in that program that we saw a clip where one of the military officers was addressing press conference with Channel Television and some other stations. I saw their mics. So when the military starts addressing press conferences on issue of election, it goes beyond just providing security. It goes into participation in the process. That is what elementary
we have to Lagos. We have to go to Lagos now. But I have to mention here that I do also recall, I have not been to a collation center. I don't know what one looks like, sadly. I mean, I would love to see one of these days as a journalist, what it looks like. But I do know that my colleagues have been posted to collation centers. We had correspondents in many collation centers across the country. And I recall, I remember that, the anchors in the studio asked one of them, I'm trying to remember who now, either between Lagos or Ogun State, what the security situation was like. And they said, oh, it will be very difficult for even a pin to pass through the kind of security that, they have. They said almost all the security agencies, if I recall very clearly, were there. So it was saying that it's not exactly new for different security agencies to be present at collation centers. The question is what they were doing there. But let's quickly go to Lagos now and take questions from my colleagues.
Mr. Victor, I'm just wondering, since it seems to suggest that a lot of people have come to that conclusion that the collation centers are usually the target for anyone who wants to create mayhem. In this 2019 elections, be it the military has been alleged by INEC and even the governor of Rivers State himself. But what must be done since the collation centers seem to be the target? What must be done to prevent or to protect the collation centers?
Yeah. The answer is very clear. What must be done to protect the collation center is what is done to protect the polling units. You don't need the military to protect the polling units. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the collation center is just a amplification of the polling units. The difference is that at that collation center, voters are not allowed to come in. you have certain persons, I don't need to state all that, the election of accredited election observers for the collation center, security agency, INEC officials, and some other persons. So the collation center is ordinarily guided by the security agency. So the truth is this: at the collation center, what you should see is the fact that you cannot gain entrance into such center except you are an accredited person. Even a political party, it is not all the political parties agents that gets into the collation center. You need to be accredited for that purpose, including the civil society, the election observers. So as a matter of fact, the least place you should see serious heavy military presence should be at the collation center, because it is sieving. That collation center is always sieved. You have, in some cases, certain election observers don't even have access to it, because you have what we call coalition accreditation for election observers, inclusive of the military security, the security agency. So there is no reason whatsoever for you to have, even in some cases, like Omokwe was trying to state, that all security agencies, to me, all security agencies, as said by whoever was given that report, couldn't have included the military in a coalition center. The military could have their stop and search points, in places close to the coalition center, which is normal. We have had places, in the coalition centers that sometimes they are always within the specific areas. So you could have military standing at some distance away.
Come in here. If I may come in again.
We are talking about being
as a follow-up, my apologies, as a follow-up, if I may just come in. Since you say there has been a practical invasion of the polling of the collation center in Rivers State, what then must be done now? What can INEC do such that we see this process come through and then concluded at the end of the day, possibly having some kind of military, some kind of security arrangements that may not necessarily mean the active participation of the military?
Did you hear his question?
I heard the first part. I didn't.
Okay, let me take the question again. Can you hear me now? Let me take the question again. I said, what then must be done, since you are alleging